In the headlines, bandits kill 32, burn 17 houses in southern Kaduna. Ex-DPO arrested as NDLEA intercepts 22,000 kilograms of cocaine. Tank explosion in Soba town as residents panic. And on the foreign scene, Guinea Interim Assembly holds first post-coup session. Hello and welcome to Trust TV News Updates. I am Martia Umar. And now the news in detail. 32 persons were killed, 74 houses were burned in southern Kaduna. Senator representing Kaduna South, Danjuma La'a, wants people in southern Kaduna to defend themselves against the unabated killings by terrorists in the area.
The lawmaker said this when the Southern Kaduna stakeholders paid an assessment visit to the 3 affected communities that recently came under attack by the terrorists, who killed 32 persons, burnt 74 houses and destroyed food items and other valuables worth millions of naira. The villages are Kurmin Masara in Zangon Kataf, Mararaban Kaguru and Sonjay in Kaura local government areas of Kaduna State.
We must live up to this petition, and they will continue to protect and defend themselves at all costs. No two ways about it. I didn't ask them to go out and go and fight. One should not leave his area to go and fight outside. One should remain in his house to protect his house and protect his life. Because it is very, very important for one to know that life was not purchased in the market. It was given to us by God. 4 people are killed. 4 people are injured. So we put them to hospital.
Some of the victims, while narrating their ordeal, said the elderly, women and children were also killed in the attacks.
Burnt houses in this community are over 40 houses. So many were burnt in their bedrooms. Over 20 people were killed.
They divided themselves, some from the other end and then the other one at the other end. Some came through this way, shooting sporadically. People had to run helter-skelter. End day for them, burning, looting, and so forth.
The victims also appealed to the government to beef up security in the areas to avoid further attacks.
Gunmen attacked Kardafi ward in Malufashi local government area of Katsina State, reportedly killing 17 people. Sources say the attackers invaded at least 5 communities under the Kardafi ward on Friday, shooting sporadically at the helpless citizens of the areas, murdering 17, while scores were left with various degrees of wounds. A member representing the local government council at the State House of Assembly, Aminu Saidu, who confirmed the incident, said he visited the areas and sympathized with the families over the unfortunate incident. There are increasing criminal activities recently in Katsina State, with the police authorities attributing it to the influx of bandits from Zamfara and Sokoto states due to the ongoing military operations in those states. Some indigenes of Plateau State who were displaced during the 2001 crisis are still struggling to rebuild their life after the ethno-religious unrest 20 years after the crisis. Trust TV's Ibrahim Ismail meets with some survivors in Narabi, a village in Toro local government area of Bauchi State.
Narabi village is located few kilometers away from Jos, the Plateau State capital. 20 years ago, the village received a large number of displaced people from Plateau State due to a religious unrest, which claimed hundreds of lives and properties worth billions of naira. Because of the catastrophic damage caused by the conflict, survivors still struggle to recover from the economic meltdown.
We were managing life before our houses were burnt. We are now homeless and life is hard.
Yanzu ina yi amma komai ya kare na sana'an babu ko kobo bashi ma ake bi na.
I was in business, but I'm now bankrupted. We fed from poor seed. We want to enroll our children in school, but no one is supporting us.
Ba mu da hali da za su yi makaranta.
To yanzu ku yanayin rayuwa muna cikin kuncin rayuwa yanzu. Ga yaran ma yanzu makaranta.
We are in a very difficult condition and worried about the education of our children. Things are getting worse.
Abubuwan da sai cikukuɗe mana yake yi.
Musamman muna da bukata na samun gwamnati ta tallafa mana musamman ta bangaren matasa da yara mata. We
want government to build a skill acquisition center for our youths and women for self-reliance. They can learn tailoring and other skills. You see, this is better than giving money.
These people demand more intervention in agriculture and education.
Our major problem in this community is that we need a standard school in which our children can be educated. We also need like a clinic or hospital where whenever someone is ill, we can be able to go there. And also the issue of electricity here, they are sharing it. Maybe one day you have it, the other day you don't have it. And apart from that, majority of the people here are farmers. And most of them, they don't have the money to do the farming, more especially because of the issue of fertilizer and some other things. That is our major problem here.
The Plateau indigents residing in Narabi are calling on the government of the state to remember and consider their plights. Ibrahim Ismail reporting for Trust TV.
In another development, the National Drugs Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, says over 22,160 kilograms of codeine syrup, methamphetamine and skunk has been seized at Apapa Seaport and a notorious drug den, Akala, Mushin, Lagos, in two major operations in the state by its operatives. A statement signed by the agency's Director of Media and Advocacy, Femi Babafemi, said while a total of 14,080 kg codeine syrup and 4,352.43 kg cold caps are used to conceal the former in a 40-feet container imported from India were intercepted on Wednesday, the 2nd of February 2022 at Apapa Port. Cannabis, loud skunk were imported from Ghana, and methamphetamine weighing 3,727 were seized in an early morning raid at Akala, Mushin, where 17 suspects, including 5 females, were arrested on Thursday, 3rd February. The seizure at the Lagos seaport followed intelligence from foreign partners and cooperation of other port stakeholders. The statement said that Akala and NDLEA strike force operatives in their numbers with support from the military stormed the fortified warehouses in the drug den and evacuated bags and bottles of cannabis, loud, skunks, scotches and methamphetamine, as well as the 17 suspects for further investigation. NDLEA said a 64-year-old former divisional police officer of Idare Police Station, Ondo State, who was dismissed from service for drug offences, Monte Chica, has again been arrested with an accomplice, Emmanuel Eniola, who is 40 years old, with 280 blocks of compressed cannabis weighing 168 kg in Mokwa, Niger State. Soba town in Soba local government area of Kaduna State is thrown into pandemonium following a fuel tank explosion in the area. The incident happened Sunday morning when offloading fuel at a filling station in a town. Details of what led to the explosion remain sketchy, but eyewitness said no casualties are recorded. The tanker is completely burnt as firefighters from Zaria local government area tried to put out the fire. A resident of the town, Shehu Soba, said the tanker driver couldn't move the vehicle from the filling station due to the gravity of the fire. Though resumption of contractor suicide after many months is cheering news, a community in Rigasa, a suburb of Kaduna, demand quality erosion and flooding control project completed on time. The project at Ungwan Zagi, a community in Rigasa, Kaduna State, has been abandoned for over 6 months. The report.
Unguwar Zagi is a small community in Rigasa, Kaduna State. Residents of the area said they have been suffering from erosion and flood-related issues for over 20 years. Bilatu Abubakar lost 5 rooms to the erosion problem.
It's been about 20 years since we've been suffering from this erosion. It was not big, but with time, the annual rainfall, the erosion has expanded to this level. I lost 3 rooms to the erosion. Our children often fell into the ditch when going to school, though we didn't experience much death but once. We live in a terrible situation because of this erosion.
Truly, during rainy season, there is no access here. You can see this trench. This is how we enter the trench before we get to the other place. There is no anything. That is how we cope. There is mud. That is how we cross. There is always people slippery. You understand? Yeah. And then the sand also. Sometimes you just see the sand fell. It's a danger because it can fall on somebody. There are a lot of dangers.
Resumption of the contractor to the site after several months makes the community happy, though some residents say they are not certain about the job quality, since according to them, the contractor handling the project is not known to them.
My call to government, whenever they start a project, they should let us know who are the people doing the project, tell us the extent of the project, even the cost. It's possible they can tell us the cost so that we can also assess what the contractor is doing. Yes, and even report back to the clients, then report back to those that award the contract.
Whenever there is project, we used to go and familiarize ourselves with the contractors for us to give them a sporting hand. So unfortunately, when we came here, we did all we could to know who are the contractors, but all effort in vain. No any signboard that is placed to identify who are the people doing the work. One, and I could remember there was refuse that was dumped here. We expect them to pack the refuse before putting any other thing.
For years, the community lacked access road, forcing many to relocate to other locations.
Finding a house or an apartment in Abuja is a Herculean task for tenants seeking to find affordable and standard shelter. Issues ranging from high price of rent to outrageous conditions by landlords before leasing out their houses have pushed many to the suburb of the city in order to get affordable housing. Trust TV's Nafisa Abdel Al speaks with some residents on their experiences with renting apartments.
Food, shelter, adequate healthcare facilities, and access to good roads and constant power supply are basic amenities that should be accessible to every human. Nigeria as a country in recent times has experienced inflation in the prices of these amenities such as food items, cooking gas, electricity tariff, and now housing. Abuja rent growth is outpacing the rest of the northern region as the city's apartment market roars back from the depths of the pandemic and puts pressure on the disposable income of residents. A cross-section of Nigerian residents share their experiences on high rent of housing in the FCT.
It's been quite difficult, especially in a metropolitan city like Abuja, where to get a good house in a very comfortable area, the price is quite astronomical. And in those places places that are considered slums, when you go there to get your house, the landlord, they will want to have some form of insurance that you can sustain and continue paying rent. So they might want you to work in some certain areas, some certain fields before giving their houses to you.
I've seen the landlord who said they will not accommodate a single mother. So he will prepare someone who is married, and also they will go as far as asking the kind of job you do to be sure of getting their rent at the end of the period. Because nobody wants to put somebody in his house that cannot afford that rent at a particular point in time. And seeing the rate of the rent, and that's why it's difficult to get that kind of house in Abuja here.
Generally, rent in Abuja is on the high side. I know, especially in the main heart of the town, But I think the difference is not even too far-fetched. Even at the suburbs, it's still relatively high. If you compare the house rent and income of people, you'll be convinced that it's relatively high. So it's not easy on the part of those that are living as paying rent annually. There's even some forms that you are made to fill. And in that case, they will extract every known and unknown information from you. Or how much do you earn? What are your source of income? In fact, who is your guarantor? To be able to be convinced that their investment is secured. In case you somehow fall short of the expectation, they should be able to rely on your guarantor. So I know they put people through some serious systems that will make them uncomfortable.
Landlord can't give facing their own room if you not get any work like business. That's not so simple to the thing be. Because if you not get any work now, they're not going to be where to get your money because the station with them now. Not small thing now. To get money now inside this area now, you go tell you say 1 point something, 1 year, you not get job.
Well, man, it's not easy, especially in terms of payment. You know how the situation of the country is now. Well, we are still coping, but to pay is not easy.
A bill seeking to regulate the payment of rents in the Federal Capital Territory has passed the second reading in the Senate. Nafisa Abdul-Al, Trust TV News, Abuja.
You're still watching Trust TV News updates. Coming up after the break. Despite Angela's condition, suffering from epilepsy, she's willing to marry. Do stay with us.
From all around the world,
our news is factual and concise,
giving you fresh news as it breaks.
Nigerians in the diaspora have decried the unavailability of Nigerian passport booklet.
One tricycle rider feared death while 6 others are critically injured after a moving train hit.
When I sit on the news desk every day,
there's a deep sense of responsibility that overwhelms me.
A responsibility to deliver a message to our viewers
in the most professional way possible. Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back to the news update on Trust Television. Before we go ahead, let's take a look at our top stories. We told you that 32 persons were killed, 74 houses were burned in southern Kaduna. And the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency NDLEA says over 22,000 kilograms of codeine syrup, methamphetamine and skunk have been seized at Apapa Seaport and a notorious drug den in Mushin, Lagos in 2 major operations in the state by its operatives. And moving on to more news, Nigeria's Center for Disease Control and CDC has confirmed 145 new confirmed cases of coronavirus infections in 9 states and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. The agency published the new cases in its update for February 5, 2022. 3 persons were confirmed to have died of coronavirus complications on Saturday, bringing the country's fatality toll to 3,139. Meanwhile, 144 patients were discharged after recovering from the infection on Saturday. A total of 253,685 infections have been confirmed across the country, out of which 230,126 persons have been discharged and 20,509 active cases. Lepers in Molai area of Maiduguri says they're suffering from neglect because health challenges and lack of means of survival. According to the World Health Organization's report, in 2020, new cases of leprosy dropped to 37% globally. In the same year, it recorded 127,558 new cases. Leprosy is a chronic infectious disease caused by Bacillus and Mycobacterium leprae. The report.
Molai General Hospital is located outskirts of Maiduguri metropolis. Before its transformation, the 60-year-old facility was a missionary hospital that treats and caters for leprosy patients. Behind the hospital is the leprosy colony, popularly called Angwan Kureche. It has over 200 residents in the area. Hadatu Samaila is among many villagers residing here. She contracted the disease 10 years ago after she had a 5-month-old miscarriage. The widow of 5 children lives alone and most often faces difficulty doing chores.
After the miscarriage, I had the disease. I couldn't lift anything. I can't farm. Sometimes I hardly feed. Sometimes I sleep on an empty stomach. My people don't visit me often because of my condition. My children too only check on me once in a while. I want the government to provide education for our children, and we need food.
Most of the residents are farmers, but the fear of attacks of Boko Haram has forced them to depend on support. According to the elders, they have suffered neglect and challenges of accessing affordable drugs. Patients at home and in the hospital don't have access to drugs. Most of the prescribed drugs are scarce here, despite that we can't afford it. We also can't pay our children's school fees. My son has not completed his secondary school education.
Haka tukuna kuma gwamnati ya zo ya shiga ya karbi Haji Bitirin a hannun missionary.
Back then, during the missionary time, we were provided all amenities and support, but since the government took over the hospital, things changed. We get support, but not like before. Besides the support we get, we engage in farming, but with the threats of Boko Haram, we are afraid to return to the farm. We only expect support from people or organizations. Hanatu hopes that her daily life gets easier pending when she and the community have the needed support that will be the source of their survival.
For a person with epilepsy, a range of factors can combine to produce a heightened sense of anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and feelings of isolation. While most people with the condition learn how to deal with these feelings, some may respond to such pressures by reacting in an overly aggressive, a social, irritable, or introverted manner. Angela is an epileptic patient who has found a way of dealing with isolation by putting words on paper. She also believes her condition will not stop her from getting a husband.
I'm Angela Ogonna Chukwulobe from Anambra State, North Anambra State, Nigeria. When I'm overstressed or unhappy, or no one to feed me or help me, I can be in someone, I can lose my conscience and the form of one, being epileptic. I'm just a young lady that lost reading and writing. After many years, when I lost my
And on the foreign scene, Guinea's Transitional Assembly has held its first session 5 months after the military overthrow of democratically elected President Alpha Conde. The body, tasked with organizing a return to civilian rule, met for an inaugural session in the capital, Conakry, on Saturday. The Transitional Assembly President Dansa Kuruma, in his opening remarks, said that the mechanism that brings elites to power and allow them to remain in power almost indefinitely must be definitely resolved. He called for a constitution to be drawn up that will not be easily modified. Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, who led the coup and was sworn in as interim president, has promised to reform the state, fight corruption and reform the electoral system in order to hold free, credible and transparent elections. And that wraps up the news update at this hour. Join us for the news hour at 9. I am Matia Umar. Thank you for watching.